What's up, guys? It's your boy Rich. So today I wanted to talk about two of my favorite divers at two very different price points. And this is not so much of a versus type video as much as it is talking about the level of details with one watch that is priced significantly more than the other, but I still enjoy both watches equally well for different reasons. So we're going to start with SWC's Diver, which is priced below $500 to $495 to be exact at the time of filming of this video, and then OWC's James Bond Large Crown, which is priced at around $2,000. But again, they are two of my favorite divers, so let's start with SWC's. This is in 44 millimeters, but it's only 49 from lug to lug. And it's also their freshman debut, and ever since this original divers, they've come out with a chronograph and an upcoming sports model, which looks really exciting. I'm really excited about that newer release as well. So SWC is a family-run business, and I got to know Josh and Steven, the owner of the company, quite well, and they are two of my favorite watch people of all time. And if we interact with anyone on SWC's Instagram, know that is Josh, and he's just a really good guy. So this is their freshman debut, like I said, and they hit the ground running. A lot of times, a newer watch might not have a ceramic bezel inlay. This has a ceramic bezel inlay, or they might use an inferior movement. This is the ETA 2824, and sometimes they'll even still use a mineral crystal, whereas this is a sapphire crystal. So they hit all the marks right away, just right out of the gate. And when this watch first came out, this was quite popular on social media, and you know, I can see why, especially for a watch that is priced below $500. We are getting a really handsome looking watch with phenomenal lume, as we might expect. In fact, it has, I believe, 20 layers of lume here. The bracelet is quite unique, and while this clasp does not have the micro adjustments, the SWC guys over there created a newer clasp that includes the micro adjustment, and I believe they were offering that to their customers with the divers for free. I'm not 100% on that, but I think they did at some point. Josh, I'm sorry if that's not free anymore, but I'm sure they will still take really good care of you. So I really like this a lot. This is, of course, in blue, but they also make it in black, white, green, and a black with orange. This blue and the green are the ones that I go back and forth with, but I'm really happy with this blue. So this just has a lot of great things to it, especially for a first watch. You would never guess that it's priced below $500. And by the way, I reviewed both of these watches fully. I just wanted to touch base with two watches because they are just priced so differently and really give me an equal amount of joy. It has a nice scalloped bezel around here. The case back, which I am glad that they did with a solid case back, and it's a really nice job with the details there. So I want to show you the details of this dial up close if we can get it. Yeah, there it is. See that grid in the center? I think that's really cool, and I like that logo a lot. I'm still not sure what that is. It looks like maybe a TV, an old-fashioned TV with antennas, or a Martian, but I like it a lot, and in that gold color just really adds a really nice touch to this Swiss-made watch. So at $500, I think this represents a really great value. And I know that saying it punches above its weight class might be a little overused or exhausted, but I actually think it applies to the SWCs. In fact, I think if this watch was priced at 2 or even 3 times higher, going for $1,000 to $1,500, I don't think we would do a lot of chirping, because we would still consider that a really good value for everything we are getting for a really sharp looking watch. Nothing about the SWC screams cheap. It's solidly made, but it's just well done, and just a very distinct looking diver. So hopefully you can see why I like this watch at any price point. So now let's move on to Australia. And here is OWC's James Bond Large Crown by a very different owner, Dan Fock, who is really eccentric in a good way. I really like Dan a lot personally, and he kind of sort of reminds me of Doc Brown, and who doesn't like Doc? So this watch is priced around $2,000, and this is probably over-engineering at its finest. You'll be able to notice all the screws throughout this watch, just extraordinarily well done. So if we start with the screws on the bezel, the bezel is screwed directly onto the case, and see these screws here? These are not the common screws, and while I am not a screws expert, I know these are I think they're called the hex screws. All I do know is that these are the simplest adjusting links that I have ever encountered, and a real joy. This is the tool that it comes with, and because the holes are so large, it just makes adjusting it really easy and just really smooth. You don't have to hold the tool up to the watch really closely and hope and pray and find that you find the slot exactly. You don't have to do any of that. I can do that from this far, and there it is, boom, right there. I found the hole. It is just that easy and just really smooth to adjust the link, and I didn't want to underestimate that point. It just makes it a real joy. So that's the tool, and the holes are throughout here, so you can see that. And on this bracelet, this is an oyster style bracelet, but it's a little thicker than almost every other oyster bracelet that I've seen, but in a good way. It's not overly chunky. It's just a very sturdy watch. This is a very substantial watch in the hand. You can tell this is quality. You can tell that this is not a cheap watch, because it isn't. The center first link right there is slightly longer than other oyster bracelets, which gives it that really comfortable feeling. This has to be one of the most, if not the most comfortable bracelet that I've ever had. This just conforms to my wrist just wonderfully, just really well done. It has the double folding clasp there, really well done. Solid case back, just a lot of details here. So it is a solid case back, and the movement is the Sellita 300 movement. And if we didn't already know that there are different levels to the Sellita movement, well, we're about to find out. The most common type of Sellita movement among the independent brands would be the Sellita 200. And then from there is an upgraded top grade Sellita 200 movement to the 200 movement, and then there's the 300 movement, and then there is a top grade 300 movement, which is what is used here. That is on par with the Soprod 810 movement. It is an extraordinary movement. You can see the very smooth sweeping seconds hand right there. This movement is with an accuracy of plus 2 seconds a day. It is different from SWC's, which again, it's not a comparison, but I did want to point out some of the details. So plus 2 seconds a day for this extraordinary movement, which I consider as good, not just me, I think everybody would consider the top grade Sellita 300 to be equivalent to the Soprod 810 movement. Just really well done. So this is also a true super compressor. There aren't too many of those. I think the Omega Proploff is another one. So what that means is the back and the front move together like this under water pressure, and that's going to make it a lot more water resistant. A lot of details throughout this, and we don't often get a super compressor, especially priced around $2,000. Omega's, for example, I think is priced at least 3 times that, maybe 4 times more than that. Entirely different looking watch, but my point is to find a true super compressor is not easy, especially at this price point. So I really enjoy the OWC. It's just a quality watch. It is not as flashy looking as some other divers. I think if we compare that to the SWCs, 44 millimeters, this is 40.5 millimeters. I would say the SWC is a little bit, it stands out a little bit more. It's going to pop a little bit more on your wrist, and I really like the way that this looks. Versus OWCs, which I won't call it conservative, but it's not going to stand out and hit you in the face the way that SWC does. But I really like this a lot. Why I enjoy wearing this is just simply for the quality, knowing that I have a really great watch on that is made in painstaking detail by an owner who is obsessed with perfection, and that is Dan. And at this price point, it's in the same waters as other heritage brands such as Longines or Oris. And for anyone that's going to chirp and say, well, for $2,000, I would rather have one of those better known brands, and that's going to be your preference. But I will say neither of those or any heritage brand in this price point is going to have anything on the OWC. This watch can be stacked up against those, and I think it's going to come out on top. It definitely uses a superior movement. And while a lot of Orises use the Sellita 200 movement, this uses the Sellita top grade 300 movement. So movement-wise, there is no comparison. This is also regulated, and again, plus 2 seconds a day. The over-engineering is there. So this watch is a watch that can stand up against any of those other watches in that price point. But the point I'm trying to bring up is that because this is playing in the $2,000 territory as other better known brands, it's going to be open for a little bit more criticism. But I would immediately argue that you're not going to find a better made watch, a better crafted watch than the OWC. So hopefully you can see why I like both of these watches for different reasons. And if I'm gonna continue to talk about over-engineering, I'm gonna bring up this Torby Lawless right here. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on a Torby. I might talk about this a little bit more later, but this is also a watch that you could consider this over-engineering. You see the screws on here? This case is also, the bezel is also screwed onto the case. I'll touch on this a little bit. It has a sapphire bezel inlay, a brass dial. This is a German-made watch, but another one of my favorites. But I wanted to compare that to the over-engineering of the OWC. So that might be for another video, but I want to, again, share with you two of my favorite dive watches. Actually, I could say three with Torbys, and I will say three. But for this video and purposes, it's two of my favorite dive watches that I want to touch on because they are priced so differently. Again, around $500, around $2,000, two great-looking divers. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you the next time.